A stillness deeper than before. A stillness that holds the weight of what has just occurred. The first breath of divinity settles into the fabric of existence, weaving itself into the starlight, the shadows, the silence. Perhaps it was never meant to be dramatic. Perhaps the sacred always enters quietly, like dawn slipping beneath a window's edge. In the final moments of this chapter, imagine the early cosmos resting again, peaceful but forever changed. The shimmer remains, the veil remains. The shadows drift as they always have, but now there is awareness. Now there is breath. Now there is the faint promise that in ages to come, mountains will rise, oceans will swell, gods will take shape, and myths will find their voices. For now, though, we return to silence. A silence filled not with emptiness, but with potential. A silence that feels like the pause before a story begins. A silence that holds, gently, the question that will echo through all history. What existed in the quiet breaths before myth itself took shape? The answer drifts like mist along an ancient sky, soft, uncertain, eternal. And it waits for you in the dark.
A movement so delicate it might have been the settling of dust or the stirring of a thought. At first, it seems little more than a soft trembling in the darkness, a ripple moving through a substance that has never known motion. But the ripple returns, stretching farther, then again widening like breath. Whispers tell us this was the first stirring of Gaia. Not a goddess yet, not a figure carved from myth or memory, but a presence, ancient and unformed, moving beneath the moonlit veil of the cosmos. Her awakening was not a thunderous birth. There was no roar, no flash of blinding light, no fracture in the primordial silence. Instead, the world opened its eyes the way a flower opens to the pale glow of dawn, slowly, tenderly, as though afraid to disturb the quiet around it. Beneath drifting layers of starlit fog, the earth took its first inhale. A gentle blooming followed, subtle, almost shy, as though the stones themselves were waking from a dream that had lasted longer than eternity. The motion spread outward like a soft wave, coaxing vague shapes from the void. Land pressed upward, uncertain at first, then steadier. Ridges formed, valleys loosened their shadows. The world unfurled piece by piece, like a scroll revealing a forgotten tale. It is said that moonlight, though the moon did not yet exist, fell upon this rising body. Light without source, illumination without a sun. Pale, silver, and impossibly soft, it touched the new land with a gentleness unlike anything that would ever come after. Under this spectral glow, Gaia exhaled again. And the world listened. For Gaia was not merely earth, she was the consciousness that blossomed within it. A sacred mother forming herself from dust, silence, and memory older than myth. She was the pulse beneath stone, the breath within caverns, the slow unfolding of presence where before there had only been emptiness. Mountains rose from her awakening like long-held sighs, stretching, lengthening, reaching toward a sky that had not yet decided its shape. Their slopes glimmered faintly, marked by the same moonlit shimmer that had ushered Gaia from her slumber. Forests followed, not sudden or wild, but blooming, as though each tree were a thought remembered from another age. Branches curled upward like hands searching for warmth. Leaves unfurled with a hush, carrying the fragrance of newness, of hope, of something sacred being written across the silent world. The oceans were the last to come. They gathered slowly, forming from whispers of moisture, from drifting vapor, from the quiet condensation of possibility. When they pooled across the sleeping earth, they spread like ink, filling every hollow, softening every edge. Their surfaces shimmered faintly as though reflecting stars that were not yet born. All of creation seemed to move with caution, as if afraid to break the delicate spell of Gaia's awakening. Some believe that in these first moments, the world felt fragile, like a promise whispered too softly, as if one sudden movement might shatter it into dust and darkness again. But Gaia held it gently, shaping it with care, like a mother swaddling a newborn world. The atmosphere carried an air of reverence. Every rise of land, every ripple of water, every curve of the forming horizon glowed with a sense of ceremony. It felt as though unseen hands were guiding the listener through this unfolding, inviting them to witness something forbidden, yet profoundly tender. Beneath the moonlit veil, Gaia took shape not as a figure, but as a presence that could be felt through the quiet pulse of the landscape itself. The mountains were her bones, the forests her breath, the seas her flowing thoughts. Every stone, every breeze, every patch of glowing earth sang faintly with her consciousness. And yet, for all the beauty rising around her, Gaia remained alone. The sky stretched endlessly above her, vast and empty. Clouds had not yet learned to wander. Winds had not yet found their direction. The heavens were a silent chamber of pale haze, waiting for company that had not yet arrived. Beneath it, the earth lay quiet, still breathtaking, still sacred, but waiting. You may imagine Gaia feeling this aloneness, not as sorrow, but as a gentle ache, a longing, like the yearning of a melody for its harmony. She moved through the newborn world, sensing each mountain as it rose, each forest as it bloomed, each sea as it formed, but always without a companion to share the moment with.
Symbolic images drift through the silence, an endless horizon without a second presence, a shoreline unmarked by any step but her own, a sky longing for voice, yet holding its breath. The world, touched by Gaia's bloom, was beautiful, but beauty without witness is a lonely thing. So Gaia waited.
Her presence spread across the land, sinking into the deepest roots, climbing up the tallest ridges, whispering into the earliest winds. She shaped herself slowly, not into a body, but into a field of awareness that touched every speck of dust. She watched over the forming earth with a patience that only a timeless being could possess. And as she waited, her thoughts drifted through the quiet world, stirring small ripples in the air. These ripples became the earliest echoes of emotion, soft symbols of longing etched into the stillness, a breeze that carried meaning without sound, a tremor in the soil that held the weight of a desire not yet spoken. Beneath the silence, something deeper began to stir. At first, Gaia mistook it for her own echo, a reflection of her loneliness, perhaps, or a fragment of dream left behind by the void. But the tremor was distinct. It pulsed in a rhythm not her own. It moved through the air like a shadow, drifting at the very edge of perception. Some believe this was the first whisper of another presence waiting for its moment, a presence still hidden behind a veil of starlit uncertainty, a presence that had not yet chosen a form, but whose existence brushed faintly against Gaia's awareness like a feather trailing across the surface of water. Gaia paused, her breath softened, the world hushed around her. Something was there, not close, not clear, but real. For the first time since the dawn shimmered into existence, Gaia felt a shift that did not come from her, a quiet acknowledgement that she was not alone, that something else was waking in the distance, slowly, cautiously, perhaps even shyly. She reached toward it, not with hands or voice, but with awareness, a gentle touch, an invitation, a question unspoken. The presence did not answer, but it pulsed again, faint and rhythmic, a sign, a whisper, a promise. Gaia withdrew softly, respecting the silence, respecting the mystery. As the chapter draws toward its close, imagine the newborn world bathed in pale, diffused light. The mountains glow faintly under the moonlit veil. The seas breathe gently. The forests sway with the rhythm of a world still learning how to exist. In the distance, the unidentified presence waits, hidden, veiled, patient. Gaia senses it. The world senses it. And the listener
standing at the threshold of this ancient dawn, feels the soft tension between solitude and companionship, between silence and voice, between birth and the first hint of myth. No answer is given, no shape emerges, the mystery remains untouched. Perhaps it was never meant to be revealed. The final breath of the chapter settles into stillness, like starlight dimming behind a drifting cloud. Gaia stands quietly in a world she has shaped, no longer alone, yet not yet accompanied, and the veil of uncertainty closes gently around the moment, soft as moonlight falling on untouched ground. It is said that long before Olympus claimed the sky, before thunder learned its voice and lightning found its name, the world rested under a deeper, older stillness. A stillness so complete it seemed woven from the fabric of forgotten dreams. In that ancient hush, the earth, newborn beneath Gaia's awakening breath, waited for something more, something to move within its mountains, to stir beneath its seas, to give shape to the currents of existence. Some believe the first echoes of that movement began not with sound, but with shadow. Imagine a landscape so quiet that even the forming winds hesitate before touching the ground. A world of rising peaks, vast oceans expanding like slow thoughts, forests whispering without leaves, all of it bathed in a dim, early light, neither day nor night, where everything seems caught between becoming and remembering. Beneath this muted sky lies a vast cavern of stone, carved not by hand nor time, but by the gentle settling of the world as it formed. No torches, no stars, only a faint silvery glow that drifts from unseen cracks above, scattering light like dust suspended in water. This cavern, the old stories say, was the cradle of the Titans. Not gods, not yet, not rulers or tyrants or figures shaped for myth, merely presences, vast, undefined, waiting in silence. Here, in this hall of half-formed rock, the shadows begin to gather. At first, they cling to the walls, thin and wavering like smoke. Then they stretch, lengthening along the stone floor. They move without haste, as though responding to a call carried through the bones of the earth. Slowly and steadily, they converge toward the cavern's center, spiraling like ancient ink sinking into parchment.
Whispers tell us that these shadows were the earliest outlines of the Titans, not bodies, but intentions, domains waiting for form, essence without edges. From the swirling dark emerges a trembling hum, deep and resonant, like a mountain shifting in its sleep. The air thickens,
The cavern breathes, and then, with a movement so slow it barely disturbs the dust, the first shape rises. It rises like a mountain lifting itself from the sea, a colossal presence, heavy with age, despite having no memories yet. Its form is rough, unfinished, stone in the process of becoming flesh. Light glances off its surface in fleeting patterns, revealing glimpses of a face that is not quite a face, shoulders that crumble into shadow, hands that blur into the darkness. This is the first Titan. And as it stands, the earth trembles, not in fear, but in recognition. Another shadow gathers beside it, rising taller, broader, shaped by currents of time not yet measured. Then another, and another, 12 in all, though their number is not yet known to the world that holds them. Each Titan emerges from the silence like a fragment of nature rising into awareness. One shaped like the stillness between waves, one like the weight of a mountain, one like the endless vault of the sky before stars existed. None speak. None need to. Their presence ripples through the cavern, filling every hollow with a sense of immense possibility. It is said that when the last of the Titans took shape, a subtle glow spread across the chamber, faint, golden, like torchlight filtered through amber. Its source remains unknown. Some believed it shimmered from the earth itself, a welcome from Gaia to the children rising from her depths. Others claim it came from the farthest corner of the cavern, where a flickering radiance curled like a hidden memory waiting to be reclaimed. Whatever its origin, the light settled upon the Titans softly, revealing their forms more clearly. Forests seemed to echo in the contours of one Titan's limbs. Oceans glittered faintly along the arms of another. In the eyes, if they could be called eyes, one could see the first spark of purpose, dim but steady, like a star preparing to ignite. Creation listened. The Titans took their first steps into the world not with thunder, but with the quiet shifting of stone beneath their weight. Their movements were slow, cautious, as though they feared disturbing the fragile quiet that had sheltered them. When they emerged from the cavern, the earth greeted them with dim horizons and a sky waiting to be shaped. Some believed the Titans walked the early world like wandering guardians, their presence guiding the rhythms of a universe still learning its pulse. They raised mountains not with force, but with gentle encouragement. They teased rivers into existence by tracing lines through the soil with their fingers. They breathed warmth into the air, coaxed clouds into wandering, and carved the first valleys with their shadows. Yet even as they moved across the land, a sense of melancholy lingered around them. For though the world was beautiful, it was empty. The forests whispered, but only to themselves. The seas churned, but no one listened to their sighs. The sky stretched endlessly, but without stars to keep it company. And the Titans, vast, patient, ancient, felt the weight of that silence pressing gently against their hearts.
It is said that Okeanos, whose essence mirrored the global sea, stood often at the edge of the forming waters, watching them expand into the distance with a longing he could not name. Hyperion, shaped from the light that had not yet chosen a sun, gazed upward at the empty heavens, knowing they craved illumination. Tethys traced her fingers along the rivers she birthed, feeling their currents whisper for companions they had yet to meet. Even mighty Kronos, who carried the weight of time before time had rules, walked with a heaviness that brushed faint shadows behind him. The world awaited more. The Titans sensed this. And though they held dominion over all that existed, they could not fill the silence completely. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. In the stillness that followed their arrival, the Titans began to drift into their domains. One settled into the cradle of the seas. Another wandered the ridges of forming mountains. Another slipped into the high clouds, coaxing them into movement with soft breaths of wind. Their separation was not born of conflict, but of quiet purpose, a recognition that each had a role to play in shaping the newborn world. But in their solitude, the shadows returned. Not the shadows that birthed them, but new ones, longer, softer, drifting at the edges of their awareness. Shadows that felt like distant presences waiting just out of reach. The Titans often paused, sensing something on the horizon, a faint shimmer, a stirring beneath the earth, a tremor in the air. Something else was coming, something neither friend nor foe, but necessary. Perhaps they sensed the future. Perhaps they felt the whisper of beings who would rise after them. Perhaps they knew their age would not last forever. Whatever the truth, a quiet understanding passed between them. Their reign, though vast, would drift into shadow one day. And yet, even this truth did not disturb them. For the Titans were shaped from serenity as much as stone. They understood that the world must change, must grow, must evolve beyond its earliest guardians. Their purpose was not to rule eternally, but to hold the world in its infancy, to guide its early breath, to carve its first memories, to prepare it for what or who might come next. The chapter closes with a single image.
A titan, perhaps Kronos, standing upon a mountain ridge at dusk. The sky above is pale, waiting for stars. The world below is vast, stretching into valleys shaped by his own hands. And in the far distance, barely visible, a faint spark glimmers beyond the horizon. A spark the Titans do not yet understand. A spark that will one day become Olympus. The Titan watches, silent and unmoving, as the light flickers once, twice, then fades into the deepening twilight. He does not know what it means, not yet, but he feels its weight. And in that breath, the listener rests at the threshold of a new myth, caught between awe and silence, between the rising of the Titans and the shadows that will one day swallow their reign. Perhaps it was never meant to be clear. Some stories are born to drift into twilight, leaving only echoes behind. And the Titans, once risen from silence, begin their slow descent into shadow.
There is a moment in the oldest layers of Greek myth, a moment before names, before stories, before even the idea of a god. A moment when something stirred, not as a figure, not as a voice, but as a vibration through the world itself. To understand this moment, we must travel to a mountain far older than Olympus, a mountain that existed long before kingdoms, long before mortals, long before the sky was claimed by any ruler. This is the mountain where the first divine echo took shape. It was not yet a place of temples, not yet a place of worship. It was simply a massive, silent shape rising from the early world, surrounded by thick mists and the distant sound of shifting earth. The ancient Greeks believed that sound, true sound, was not just noise. It was the heartbeat of the universe. And on this mountain, they imagined that the very first heartbeat became a voice.
Not loud, not sharp, but a soft, rolling echo that moved through stone, as if the mountain itself were breathing. No one witnessed it. No gods, no titans, no mortals. This was an age when life had not yet learned to listen. But the mountain heard. And from that first trembling vibration, myth says the world began to recognize itself. The sky felt its own vastness. The earth felt its own weight. The oceans, though still young, felt the pull of the moon to be. This echo, this early divine murmur, did not speak words. It did not command or create. Instead, it shaped awareness, the quiet understanding that existence itself could grow into something greater. And slowly, the mountain began to reflect that awareness. Winds curled around its sides like whispering spirits. Clouds gathered near its peak, drawn to a presence they could not see but could somehow feel. Even the shadows on its slopes moved as though guided by a rhythm older than time. Later myths would say this was the moment the world first prepared itself for gods, not by forming them, but by learning the language of divinity, vibration, echo, and resonance. This early mountain became a sacred landmark long before Olympus earned its fame. For the ancient storytellers, it symbolized the quiet beginning of all divine expression, the place where potential stirred for the very first time. And though later ages forgot its name, though even the myths themselves let its story drift into mist, its echo never disappeared.
They believed that every thunderclap carried a piece of it. Every temple chant, every rustling of leaves on a calm night, all were fragments of that first divine vibration, the echo that shaped the future gods, the echo that taught the world how to speak in myth, the echo that still lingers in the background of every ancient story, if you listen gently enough to hear it. Before the gods claimed the heavens, before Zeus raised his thunder, the sky itself was still learning what it meant to be. In the earliest myths, the sky was not a ruler. It was not a father or a king or a watchful presence. It was simply an endless expanse, vast, unmoving, unaware of its own magnificence. But after the first divine echo formed on the ancient mountain, something changed. The sky began to notice. At first, it was only a faint awareness, like a sleeper waking slowly from a deep dream. The blue above the world thickened, deepened, and stretched as if testing the edges of its own body. Clouds drifted with intentional patterns, no longer random, but gentle, deliberate formations that hinted at thought. The storytellers imagined that the sky opened its eyes, not literal eyes, but a sense of perception, a realization that it was the roof of all things. They said that when the sky awakened, it felt a mix of wonder and solitude. Below it, the oceans churned, lively and restless. The earth stirred with newborn mountains, forests, and caverns. But the sky had nothing to touch, nothing to anchor itself to. It was alone in its immensity. And so it listened. It listened to the mountain's first divine echo as it rolled upward. The vibration reached high into the quiet air, and the sky, curious and newly alive, embraced the sound.